Since 1991, all our governments have made growth the priority. It started with Narasimha Rao and all the governments that followed. The current Prime Minister has made it very clear. He's talked of a $5 trillion economy. So growth is important. But in the process of pursuing growth, we are forgetting in the 1950s and 60s, we spoke of growth and social justice. Today, I don't think the social justice part gets any kind of attention at all. So what happens if you pursue growth? As you go for growth, the best way to get it is by extracting resources. So you get rid of the forest, you acquire land, you mine the minerals, you do anything that you can because it will increase the growth rate and it will increase profits. Now, if this has been the overall arching vision of the governments that came after 1971, it's also been the vision of the state governments. Once in a while, they come and say, we are interested in social justice, we do this or that. But that's a blip. The overall thing is growth. Bangalore is a good example of what happens when you got unchecked growth. It's got growth. It's got millionaires and billionaires. But it's also got, what do you call it? Olympic class traffic jams. So there are problems. We've got garbage. We've got all kinds of things. Because these do not count, what matters is growth. And if this is what it is, and we want to look at an alternative, as Prasanna said, we can't take the position that, you can take in a corporate context. Oh, the operation is successful. The patient is dead. You cannot have this kind of a situation. You have to worry about things other than growth, which is a percentage, X%. You see the newspaper says 6.5 or 6.6, and lots of debate takes place on that. But the point is, if you look at the other side of it, yes, poverty has reduced, that is true, and that's good. But at the same time, unemployment is growing across the country. Various states have different experiences. Overall, female participation in labor force is coming down. These are very worrisome. And the best way for people to become independent, is to have a job, to earn that gives them dignity as well. Now, that particular prospect is not happening. And that is because the way to get growth, the way to get profits is through mechanization. And with new AI technologies and things coming in, more and more jobs will be lost. Earlier it was jobs that required manual skill. Now it will be even middle-level management, IT skills and so on. Call centers have disappeared. You get these recorded voices on the telephone when you call somewhere. Press this number, press that number, and you get nowhere. This is going to increase. So in a sense, is the quality of life going to improve for a majority? I doubt it. The only way to fight this is to say we need to have an alternate vision. If you say that we've tried growth for 30 years and it has had some bad consequences, and for environment, he has described what those are, for health, you've described it. Then we need another kind of vision. And we need a vision in which he says, okay, growth is fine, but that's not enough. We need, what are those things? It's very easy to say in general, people's welfare. You have to break it down and say, what is people's welfare? Do we give priority to investment in people? Do we look at schooling, for example, as a cost or as an investment? Do we look at health, public health in particular, as a cost or as an investment? It's a cost because in budgets it's shown under the expenditure items. But in reality, investing in schools, investing in public health is a long-term investment. It improves people's, what Amartya Sen calls, capabilities. It enables people to be healthy enough to work. It gives them the skill to be able to work. And as education grows, they also, it also opens up new opportunities. You look at other countries that have done this. Look at a country like Thailand, which did not invest in universities till recently. But they made sure that every child went through secondary school. And after secondary school, you have the capability of working in factories, of understanding manuals, and Thailand industrialized, Malaysia industrialized. But here we've set up IITs and IIMs and neglected the lower level schools. Now we are also going into private universities. If you look at the kind of fees that are being charged, yes, a certain number of people can do it. Now, thanks to Mr. Trump, US visas won't be available. The private universities will get a boost because instead of paying, 12 lakhs a year to a US university, you can pay to our local universities. But this means that a whole lot of people are excluded. So what is the vision with which we can go? And the only solution to this is that you cannot depend solely on the private sector and the market forces. You need a strong state. You need a state. Now, you don't need a state that's statist, the Soviet Union kind of control that has collapsed. But you still need a state that works. And the best way to look at it is the level at which that state works. So which is not at the level of the union in Delhi or state capitals, but it is the level of the municipalities, at the level of panchayats. That is where, and this is where this whole devolution comes in. One of the points that was made, and it was called commendable, is that the devolution in Karnataka to districts is very high. We got number one. Well, excellent. But if you look at it in greater detail, a lot of the money that is being devolved is government salaries. They're dispersed through the district. So if you look at the developmental expenditure, it's not very different from other states. So these are ways in which you can hide a lot of things. So you have to look at it in greater detail and greater depth, break it up into its components and see how it works. One index of what is the size of the state that works is what is called the tax GDP ratio. Now in India, if you take tax GDP ratio from direct taxes, it's 10%. If you take it from all taxes, it's about 16%. Now compare it to other countries. If you look at the European countries, it's up to 40%. Sweden is exceptional, but 40 across European country. In the United States, which prides itself on its private sector, it's about 35%. In Brazil, it's 30%. Brazil is a country you can compare us with. It's big, it's large, it's diversified. It's like us. So we have a state that is half the size of these other countries, and therefore the question of capacity. Many of the reports that I saw talked about the shortage of staff. Now, what is the shortage of staff is it chief engineers? I don't think so. What you need is at the local. You need more ANMs, Anganwadi workers, primary school teachers, agricultural workers, forest guards, local police. You need a whole lot of these, which are not, and that is where we are short. If you look at any of these reports, apart from saying they're short of people, there's also this lack of coordination. The health department doesn't talk to the education department and so on. And the only way to do that is to put the whole thing in the control of the local government. Why not the district adhyaksh be given the powers? Earlier under the Ramakrishna Hegde government, they had the status of ministers of state. At that point in time, the staff were answerable to the Zilla Panchayat president. If I remember, Raghu, you told me that your annual CR was written by the Zilla Panchayat president at that time. Now that has changed. They have no powers now. Instead of being like the chief minister, they've become like the governor. So in a sense, we have decentralized, but then the ऊपर से शेरवानी अंदर से परेशानी business. You have to unlock it and look at it. We passed a number of laws, but in all these cases, when you examine it, this is what happens. I think the only way to do this is for groups like this, for agencies like CIVIC and various others, to do these report cards, to hold up a mirror, to get young people to do it. I'm very, very happy that it is young people who've done this study, that it's being shared. And I think, Katyani, you're riding a tiger. You can't get off now. One meeting is not enough. I think you should go to colleges, you should go to the districts, you should go to academic institutions like ISEC. Because if you go to a place like ISEC, maybe you'll persuade some doctoral students to take these things up in much greater detail, which is also needed to supplement what you've done. You opened up a huge canvas, but it's like a huge painting where details have to be filled in. And more people. I'm very happy to see so many young people here, but we need hundreds and thousands more. And if they start participating, then they'll put pressure on the government, the local governments, the state governments, the whole thing. It's not enough to say that states don't have money. It is true that after the GST came in, the state has no real resource mobilization powers. It depends on what comes from the states. There are problems in what is coming from the states. GST share of state that due is delayed. That's true, these things are happening. But at the end of the day, the answer is not this. The answer is that the government of India is not collecting enough direct taxes. India today has the lowest rates of taxes in the world. Corporate taxes are at about 27%, which is among the lowest in the world. Don't go by what the Economic Times writes about, tax terrorism and so on. That's not true. It's low. There was a time when Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister when the marginal rate of income tax was 95%. That is, after a certain amount, if you earned 100 rupees, you paid 95 as tax. Today, the highest rate of tax is 30%. And the tragic thing is this Indian socialism, because that 30% is what those of us in this room pay, but it's also what people like Mukesh Ambani and Azim Premji pay. That's Indians. I mean, there is a scope for increasing taxes on those who have very large incomes. There is no justification for preferential treatment to capital gains. If you get your money from dividends in companies, you pay a far lower rate of tax than we do from our salaries. So there is scope for making these kind of changes. And there's definitely a case for both wealth tax. There have been calculations made by some Indian economists along with Thomas Piketty, which says that a 2% wealth tax on fortunes above, if I remember, 10 million, equivalent of $10 million, would raise more than 2% of GDP. That would make a huge difference. Now it will come to the union government, it will be shared, finance commission will allot money, there will be quarrels, some states will feel they have been cheated, all that will keep happening. But at the same time, the total kitty will increase for everybody. I think we have to look at that. And with that, I think I'll come to a stop. I think you should do more of this and more power to the people. Thank you.